Hello, fiends, friends, and familiars. Matt Orozco here from Macabre Daily, and I'm excited today because I'm joined by Kevin Lewis, who's the director behind the upcoming film Pig Hill, which is going to be coming to Screambox on December 9th. Kevin, thank you so much for taking some time to speak about the film today.
Oh, thank you, Matt, for having me. Appreciate it.
Oh, it's a pleasure. First things first, I had the pleasure of being able to see Pig Hill back in during its Fright Fest run, and had an absolute blast with it. I think folks are really going to be kind of blown away by just how grisly it gets at points. But I'm curious to know, how you got introduced to the script from Jared Burris and what excited you about the opportunity.
Yeah, Jared wrote a great script and it was, based on Nancy's book, which was really awesome as well. Um, I got the script through Lorene Yackel. She was a line producer on Willie's, and she brought it to me. And it was interesting is I asked her what she thought of it. She's like, I liked it. She's like, oh, the ending. And I was like, okay. And then I read it and I was like, oh, I love the ending, and I don't want to give any spoilers away. But basically, yeah, it was just it was such a wild ride. And but I really like this. I mean, the subject matter is very delicate and serious. I want to treat it with respect, and it's the stakes are high. It's very an emotional movie at the end. That's what I liked about it. But it had that entrance in where I could do a little of the phantasmic, weird, unique Willie's vibe, right, to it, but then also go off and make a different movie. And
Yeah.
as a filmmaker, I'm always trying to stretch those muscles. So, yeah,
It definitely does feel like it is kind of a blend between traditional horror and something like Willy's Wonderland because it
yeah,
does have elements of the fantastical, like kind of through the lore and the mythology of Pig Hill and the supposed pig people living there. But at the same time, it is very much, what drives the story forward is the journey that Rainey goes through, that Carrie's undergoing and under
yeah,
kind of understanding her past and her history.
yeah.
Now, as you mentioned, it is a pretty grisly and gruesome,
Mm.
film. And I'm wondering what kind of, was that all like, did Jared kind of put that in the script in terms of the amount of detail, or did you have the chance to kind of add on to those ideas with kind of your own perceptions of how kind of gory and intense this movie could get?
Yeah, I mean, it was in the script, but I'm also a firm believer though in what the audience has in their mind is more grisly and gross than whatever I can do. And a great example is like one of my favorite horror movies, like The Shining. That's like a psychological horror movie, right? But there's stuff going on, it's tone, right? And it's world building and its vibe. It's that kind of emotional pull that you have on that kind of movie. And I wanted that in Pig Hill. So it's like, yes, I know I had to go gross. I know how to do some things to get the point across. But then I was like, okay, when do you pull back? When do you let the audience? And so it was that delicate balance, right? So, I've never been a huge fan of just like, these just gross, I'm doing gross for gross, right? I
Right.
always, like, what's the meaning behind this? And maybe I get a little heady sometimes, but it's like, I always want to be like, okay, if this explosion or this guts or this or that, like, why? And it's like, okay, and is that real? And is it going to be emotionally, hit the audience? And so I was like, okay, I knew the pig baby scene was like that was a hit. Got to do that right. If I do that right, I'll get people. It's like this is the movie you signed up for, and
Right.
you on that journey. So yeah.
You do a very good job of setting the tone up front. I think the opening of the film, it
Yeah.
really does let you know that what you're about to see is not, it feels a little dangerous. And I
Yeah.
think you do a great job of letting the audience fill in the blanks in the third act. There are some parts in there where you could have gone really into the details of some
Yeah.
things that are pretty difficult, I think, to just even show or talk about.
Yeah.
But I think you do enough job with character development and also putting those characters in that, like putting, both Carrie and the other character, obviously not going to talk about
Yeah.
spoilers here, but putting them
Yeah.
together in that moment, the emotions and what you bring to it because of what you know about their situation does far more to propel the action than the actual situation they're in itself. And when you think about kind of how you approach something like Pig Hill versus something like a Willy's Wonderland, which are
Yeah.
totally different,
Yeah.
do you have a change in your process at all, or to you is it more just like no, I just kind of meet the story where it is and show up with what I've got?
No, that's a great question. I I mean, I read, when I work on a script, it's like trying to service the story. What does the story demand, a need? And so I don't really want to insert like, oh, I want to do this style or this or that. It's like, okay, here's the story. Then it's like, okay, how do I convey that, right? How do I work that out? And I'm really into kind of batshit crazy stories, because that allows you aesthetic. Because I'm always been I love still photography and cinematography. It allows you that look. It allows you to world build. Even on a low budget indie film, you can world build, right? And again,
Yeah.
it goes back to tone and things like that. So it's always the stories first, what the characters are doing, what's the plot, all that. And then it's like, okay, now how do I do that? And how do I build that aesthetic in? And how do I create a world? Because, I'm asking as a filmmaker too, it's like we have a responsibility to the audience. Like, you're making this thing. It's like you're asking someone to take 2 hours out of their day to watch something. So I'm always thinking about the audience. I'm thinking about me as a kid driving 2 hours to go see Evil Dead at some podunk theater, and it's like, now it's like, there's so much begging people's times, video games and doom scrolling, right? And all this stuff. And it's like, okay, you're gonna sit and watch this movie and really watch it. This isn't a movie I feel like you could do laundry and just like
No.
look back at, it's like you really got to be into it. So it's like, okay, what are those sequences like and how do we do it? And I really, at the end of the day, really respect the audience and I love the horror audience and the horror community. They're the best, and they're in for just a cool, strange, crazy, trippy ride. That's what I love.
I love that you said that you respect the audience's time because I think one of the things that seems to be changing in some regard is that we used to have kind of the efficient 80 to 90 minute film, and
Yeah.
most horror movies were 80 to 90 minutes.
Yeah.
Something happened about 10 years ago where, and I think a lot of this is probably because of streaming, where butts in seats equals dollars. And so things became longer. And then we had movies that were 2.5 hours, 3 hours long. And,
Yeah.
if you can bring some along for that runtime, great. But
Yeah.
I think you do run a risk of losing people if you don't use that time well. And especially with, horror is notorious for can have a soggy middle section.
Yeah.
But I think in Pig Hill, in support of Pig Hill, I think it actually leverages so much of the 90s pacing in horror and that it feels like it kind of goes every moment is adding upon the previous thing you've seen to eventually build up to that big third act.
Yeah.
And my last question for you is a bit of a fun one, but I've been told it's a little difficult, which is if you were asked to program a double feature and Pig Hill was one of the films, what do you think would make a fun or interesting companion piece to show alongside of it?
Oh, wow. That's a really cool question. I'm just gonna go with the first movie that just popped in my head is like Mulholland Drive.
Ha, that'd be awesome.
I love David Lynch. So yeah.
It definitely feels like if David Lynch made a slash movie, it might be a little bit like Pig Hill. So, I think there's a
That's a huge compliment. I'll take it. Thank
well, I
you.
mean, but there is like an ethereal element to just the lore and the mythology behind this place. And while it
Cool.
is more grounded than and more linear than most Lynch films are,
Yeah.
I think Mulholland Drive also presents kind of an interesting sense of a discovery of identity. And I think
No,
that's kind of what, you would see in a little bit of Pig Hill, but
no.
couldn't go wrong with something like Inside or High Tension either. It brings some of that
Oh,
French extremity
sure.
in.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Absolutely.
Well, Kevin, this has been an amazing discussion, and I probably could take up so much more of your time if I could. But I want to remind folks that you can catch Pig Hill on Screambox and on VOD on December 9th. So make sure to check it out. You're going to have a lot of fun. And Kevin, I cannot wait to see what you're doing next. Just your filmography is always keeping people on their toes. So you've got a fan over at Macabre Daily for whatever you're putting out in the future.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it.
It's a pleasure, Kevin.